Today, we explore Frist Center's latest exhibit, Looking East, Western Artists and the Allure of Japan, on this week's Arts Break.
The exhibition looks at the influence of Japan and Japanese art on some of the great masters of European and American art of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Until the mid-19th century, Japan had been closed to Western traders. It had pursued for several centuries a policy of self-isolation. So for the first time in history, it was possible to see Japanese goods, and everything about it was novel. The way of life in Japan was new and exciting, and it was so different from the way that people in the West lived. In 1872, the French art critic and collector Philippe Berti coined the phrase Japanisme, we call it Japanism in English, to describe this craze for Japan that was happening in Paris and beyond. The way that Japanese artists looked at nature was an inspiration to the artists of Art Nouveau, like Tiffany. Things like chrysanthemums, butterflies were models for their appearance in Western art, and decorative art in particular. There are several masterpieces by Claude Monet in the exhibition. His grain stacks, which is one of a series of 30 paintings that he did of grain stacks at different times of day and during different seasons. And this idea was heavily influenced by Japanese prints. If you think about the prints that you see of Mount Fuji at different times of year and at different times of day, Monet was looking directly at those for inspiration. We also have Vincent van Gogh's Postman Joseph Rouland. It's a portrait of an ordinary man. It's inspired by Japanese prints of actors. So you see some of the same expressions and poses in the portrait of Postman Rouland as you do in Japanese prints. We have several paintings that show women in a domestic interior where they may have a Japanese screen behind them or a Japanese vase beside them. But they're also often wearing a Japanese dress. And we have a really beautiful kimono. It was actually sold by a Japanese department store in the West for women to wear. And we know, for example, that Monet's wife wore kimonos around the house. This is just a fascinating chapter in the history of art, and this is one of the most beautiful shows we've ever done.
Looking East is on display at the Frist Center through May 11th. For more information, visit us online at wnpt.org/arts.
This NPT Arts Break is made possible by the generous support of the Ingram Charitable Fund and a grant from Tennessee Arts Commission.